Anybody can buy Bitcoin and have all the downside and all the upside and all the volatility. But what if I want half the upside but no downside? Well, would you rather own $1 billion of real estate in New York City or $1 billion of Bitcoin or $1 billion in Cyber Manhattan? But if I was talking to Apple, I would say, don't buy back 100 billion of your stock. Buy 100 billion of Bitcoin. It will go to 500 billion. You'll have a $500 billion business growing 20% a year. You'll make 100 billion in investment gains a year. Your investors will look at it and they'll add $1 trillion or $2 trillion to your market cap. And now the company will be valued 60% based upon the operating business.
The flow of capital is the primary driver of global financial markets, and without it, no market can thrive. This flow encompasses not only the influx of new capital, but also the circulation of existing funds. For example, we often observe capital initially entering Bitcoin, which then flows into Ethereum and other major cryptocurrencies before eventually reaching lower cap altcoins. In recent years, traditional assets like real estate and fiat currencies have experienced significant depreciation, prompting investors to seek alternative investments. Former MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor asserts that Bitcoin stands out as the most compelling alternative. With a remarkable growth rate of at least 50% in recent years, Bitcoin has captured the attention of a diverse range of investors. Watch clips from the interview of Michael Saylor with Madison, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any future update.
MicroStrategy is really just providing a set of institutional instruments that institutional investors can use to tailor a portfolio that's long, short, hedged. They can sell the volatility, they can arbitrage the volatility, they can arbitrage any instrument against any other instrument, they can generate yield, they can buy insurance. Some of those people that are short, they'll short $1 billion of MicroStrategy and they'll buy $1 billion of Bitcoin. And so if we didn't exist, then billions and billions of dollars of capital from the traditional finance markets wouldn't be invested in Bitcoin because they can't buy or hold the underlying crypto asset. They can only buy securities or bonds or options or other instruments. So we become an institutional gateway for crypto exposure by all types of investors. And you know, my real aspiration now is, if you really hate Bitcoin, I want you to love us. Like, we're the perfect instrument to short, right? Because I promise you I won't sell it, right? We're going to be levered long Bitcoin, and if you don't like it, or if you just want to hedge it, you get to sell our stock or sell puts or buy puts, right? And the worst thing I could do is to take your side of the trade or to interfere with what you're doing. So I think part of MicroStrategy's rise to prominence in the space is we have been laser-like focused, we're very consistent, we're very transparent, we're going to buy Bitcoin, never sell Bitcoin, we're going to borrow money intelligently. If you like Manhattan, and if a company said, I'm going to borrow $5 billion at 1% interest, and I'm going to develop real estate in Manhattan, you might think that that's the kind of company you would like to invest in. But if you hate Manhattan, and we're 150% exposed to Manhattan, you get this investment thesis, like, that's the company I want to short. And the most important point in the marketplace is you just have to be very pure, true to your focus, have integrity and consistency and transparency, because it's not my job to trade, hedge, arbitrage, or construct that portfolio. There are guys with hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in a Bloomberg, and that's what they do every day. So my contract with them is, we're going to do what you can't do. We're going to buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, and we're going to issue equity, and we're going to issue debt instruments, and you can't do that. Because to do what we did, you have to start with a very small company, a $1 billion company, and then we become a $40 billion company, and now we're 150% Bitcoin. So if you take another $1 billion company and do what we're doing, you can't catch us. Because at this point, we can grow $5–10 billion a year in capital or faster. can't catch us if you start with the same thing. But if you take a big company like Google or Meta or Microsoft or Apple, and they took 50 billion, and they bought 50 billion of Bitcoin, well, that would be good for Bitcoin, and that would be good for their shareholders. And if Apple did it a lot, they might add $1 trillion to their market cap. But it would be $1 trillion on top of $3 trillion. So at the end of the day, Apple would be an enterprise, 25% Bitcoin, 75% Apple. MicroStrategy is an enterprise, 150% Bitcoin. So how do you create a company which is 150% Bitcoin that can sell billions of dollars of fixed income instruments or billions of equity into the market with a permanent capital base that's going to oscillate, it's going to vibrate with the frequency of...
Michael Saylor has positioned the company as a vehicle for indirect Bitcoin investment through its stock. This strategy has proven highly profitable for the firm. Saylor emphasizes that MicroStrategy is deeply committed to Bitcoin, with investments exceeding 150% of its value in the cryptocurrency. The company closely monitors Bitcoin's performance and continues to accumulate it, believing this approach is optimal in the face of a significant economic shift. Saylor argues that companies failing to embrace Bitcoin may face dire consequences in the future. He has even advised tech giants like Apple to consider Bitcoin investments for their long-term benefit. MicroStrategy's Bitcoin holdings, worth approximately $13.7 billion, represent about 1% of all Bitcoin in circulation. This aggressive strategy has led to substantial gains, with MicroStrategy's stock outperforming many S&P 500 companies, including high flyers like Nvidia. Saylor's personal commitment to Bitcoin is equally strong, with his own holdings valued at around $1 billion. His unwavering belief in Bitcoin's potential as a store of value and his company's pioneering role in corporate Bitcoin adoption continue to influence the cryptocurrency landscape. So let's get back to listen to more of Saylor's word.
Its capital flows to where it's treated the best. And so if I have capital, in Argentina, I would put it in the US. And if I have capital in the dollar, let's take the dollar. 100 years ago in Miami Beach, an acre of land on the waterfront cost $10,000. Today, $10 million. The dollar lost 99.9% of its value against real estate, waterfront property in Florida. Okay, is that a glitch? Right? And the peso lost 99.9% of its value against the dollar in 20 years. Is that a glitch? That's really just capital flowing from a weak asset to a middling asset to a stronger asset. And Bitcoin's advance is capital flowing from 20th century analog assets, financial and physical assets, to the 21st century digital economy. And it's going to go fast early on. It went really fast the first decade. It's been going 50% a year ARR for the past 4 years. But as the 1 trillion equalizes with the 400 trillion, and this becomes 200, when this becomes probably this 450 trillion will become 700 trillion, but this 1 trillion will become 100 trillion. And so as this becomes a fraction of the 20th century economy, the difference between the cost of capital in the Bitcoin universe, which is 50% right now, and the cost of capital in the dollar universe, which is about 12 to 14%, look at, basically that's the return of the S&P. So the S&P sets the cost of capital for traditional, conventional assets, and Bitcoin is the opposite. And so Bitcoin is like 3.5 times. If you look out 10 years, instead of 50 vol versus 15 vol, maybe it'll be 45 to 40 to 38 to 36 to 32 to 28. This volatility is coming in. This ARR is coming in. Now this comes up. Because what happens when Apple and Google and Microsoft and Facebook or whatever, when they buy Bitcoin? What happens when you could take the bottom 98% of the S&P 500, if they bought Bitcoin, their performance would start to approach the big tech. And so the performance of the S&P index will move toward Bitcoin as they put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Bitcoin performance will move toward the S&P as we move from, a 100 to 1 ratio to a 10 to 1 ratio to a 5 to 1 ratio. And these things equalize, but